I need to cut contact with my abusive dad. Help me. Growing up, our dad was verbally abusive and laid hands on us. One night he come home intoxicated and decided to rope my sister. She never told anyone out of fear. We all had to walk on eggshells around him, and I have developed an anxiety disorder due to always having to be on high alert. We were always confined to the basement, our playroom, or our upstairs bedrooms because my dad wanted to watch TV in silence. He would get incredibly angry over things like us not wanting to finish our dinner or us sleeping past 8 a.m. He was also very abusive to our mom, yelling at her if she sat down and relaxed, yelling at her if we made noise, yelling at her for spending money on groceries. The worst part is that my dad is a narcissist and is very charming. He was the mayor of our town, and everyone loved him. My friends all eventually witnessed the abuse at one point or another, and they couldn't believe that one of the seemingly nicest people frequently flew off the handle and screamed at his kids. My mom was amazing. She tried everything she could to raise us basically on her own, shield us, appease my dad, and make sure we still had a good childhood. I loved my mom more than anyone, but I always resented her for not leaving him. Now I realize that is easier said than done. She is a victim too. Fast forward to college, the abuse of my mom and siblings continued. I stood up to him and argued with him about it, and after an intense screaming match during my sophomore year of college, I cut him off and didn't talk to him or see him for 6 months. My siblings told me that my parents argued more and my mom cried all of the time. I thought it would be what she needed to finally leave him, but she didn't. I eventually started coming over again and pretending that nothing was wrong because I missed my mom and my siblings. I realize now that my dad is also financially abusing my mom. He keeps all of their money in an account that only he has access to. Her paycheck goes into this account, and she has to ask him for money when she needs it. My paternal grandfather passed away about a decade ago and left my mom about $500K. My dad spent it all and more and has taken out multiple loans. I have offered many times to help my mom with the divorce and taking back control of the finances, but she's too afraid of being on her own, and she thinks they have too much debt and can't afford a divorce. Fast forward again. I'm married and have a baby. My baby was born early and weighed 5 pounds. Although I would have been protective of him anyway, his low birth weight made my husband and I extra protective. From the very beginning, I cringed every time my dad was near my son. He complained about having to wash his hands, he didn't support my son's head well, and he once fell asleep at the dinner table while holding my son. He also asked my husband and I to hold my son multiple times while he was crying, saying I can console him. My dad didn't take any hints, and it got to the point where I no longer wanted my dad to hold my son. One night, when my son was 2 months old, my siblings, my husband, and I went out to see a movie. My mom babysat. I told her that my dad was not to hold the baby, and she agreed. My dad wasn't home at the time, and he never cared to take care of my siblings and I when we were kids, so I thought it would be fine. When we got back from the movie, my mom and my dad were asleep on the couch despite the baby crying. I took the baby and put him in the car seat and drove away. I didn't even wake them up, just left a nasty message to them on a sticky note. I sneakily stuck the note to Dad's forehead while he slept. I also had suspicions that my dad tried to hold the baby that night. My son is now almost 4 months old, and my sister broke down and told me that my dad tried holding my son that night and that when my mom wouldn't let him, he screamed at her and called her a damn effing beach. She says my parents didn't speak for a week afterwards, and my mom cries all of the time because she has wanted to come forward and tell me but she feels like she has waited too long. He also complained to my sister that my husband and I know nothing about being parents because it has only been a few months and that we're entitled for setting ground rules such as washing your hands before holding the baby. Although I know I will see my mom and my siblings less, I realize now that I need to cut my dad off for good. He is still the abusive jerk he always was, and he doesn't need to be around me or my son. My dilemma is that I don't know how to communicate to any of my family members that I am choosing to cut him off.